Greetings and welcome to Cyber Focus, your source for timely international business information. My name is Jimmy Bettcher, and our guest today is Greg Casagrande. A Kelley MBA, Greg is a former auto executive who left his high-paying job 10 years ago to start the microfinance organization South Pacific Business Development Foundation in Samoa. His work was so successful in eradicating poverty that NBC News highlighted him in Making the Difference spotlight on the evening news. This past August, a Kelley MBA team authored a market study that aided SPBD's entry into Fiji. Greg oversees a large global portfolio of social enterprises, and he sees the MBA program as a continuing partner on these projects. Greg, welcome to the program.
Thanks a whole lot. Great to be here.
We're really glad to have you. For those of you, just to kick things off, for those of our viewers that aren't quite familiar with microfinance, could you share just a little bit about it?
Sure. Microfinance is all about empowering poor persons to help them lift themselves up permanently out of poverty. And generally, microfinance organizations do that by providing perhaps some small business training, unsecured credit to go and to start a small micro enterprise, and then ongoing guidance and motivation to make that a reality and to make it as a success.
Great. Now you had a background before you got involved in microfinance. You had a background more in corporate America and the auto industry, right?
Yes, yeah. I started my career with Coopers & Lybrand in New York, which is now PricewaterhouseCoopers as a CPA, and then later I spent most of my career with the Ford Motor Company, working in automotive manufacturing. And at Ford, we did three things. We designed vehicles, manufacture vehicles, and market and sell vehicles. And so I was fortunate to cover all three of those areas of my career, and then moved to Japan as a Ford implant inside of Mazda when Ford took controlling interest in Mazda.
Right. Now, so that's kind of a bit of a what some people might term a dramatic career shift towards getting involved in microfinance. What motivated that?
Certainly, well, it was a dramatic shift. There's no doubt about that. But I mean, with Ford, I had always been very proud of the economic development impact that we were making in developing countries when we go and build new greenfield sites. However, I decided that I wanted to live my economic empowerment dreams a little bit more closely, and so in November of '97, I decided to. Or 98 to make a sort of a bold switch into at least to take the time off to think about alternative routes, and if there was some path that was closer to my dreams, because I frankly at the time I just didn't have enough time to think about it. And so we, my family and I, left Ford and Mazda in Japan, and we went to New Zealand for sort of a break for what I thought was going to be 3 months, in which turned into a whole new life. I spent 9 years in New Zealand.
Did you have any experience in microfinance or on the finance side? Is that kind of where some of the motivation to get involved in microfinance came from, or?
Well, I've got a lot of financial skills as a CPA, as an MBA in finance, and I've worked in finance at Ford for a long time, and so I think I've got some pretty good grounding in the world of finance. I'm really a believer in entrepreneurship and in empowering people to help them achieve their own aspirations. And so my brother was working with the World Bank in Peru as a microfinance consultant back in the mid-'90s. And he is the one who put microfinance onto my personal radar screen. And that happened after I went to New Zealand and started exploring various career opportunities. And so he said, Greg, this stuff is very close to your own personal values. And as I began to look into that, I found that to be the case. And I increasingly moved into the world of microfinance.
Was there anything about the South Pacific that really drew you to deciding that was where you wanted to start your new venture there? Or?
Well, my family had moved from Japan to New Zealand for what was going to be a 3-month stay, and we more or less fell in love with New Zealand. My family is, my wife is Japanese, my kids are Japanese American. They were born in Japan. And Auckland is a very cosmopolitan city with a very large Asian and specifically Japanese population, so we felt very comfortable there. And we felt a strong affinity for the South. If you live in New Zealand for any period of time, you start to know the South Pacific relatively well. And so we decided that we were going to anchor ourselves in New Zealand and more broadly in the South Pacific. And so when I decided to get going in the world of microfinance, the South Pacific seemed like a natural region in which to get involved. And there were no quality microfinance organizations serving the region at that time.
Where all in the South Pacific are you currently located now, or do you have a presence?
Today, SPBD works in Samoa, Tonga, and Fiji.
Okay. All right. Great. Well, given that the economy's been a bit rougher for the last couple of years or so, it's starting to pick up. But what would you say is the importance of this kind of economic activity, given the broader economic climate we're facing today?
Well, it's all about giving people really at the base of the global economic pyramid some meaningful opportunities so they can work their way up. It's about sort of almost providing the American dream to people who don't live in America. So there are a lot of people who just who live very basic lives. And for very basic lives, I mean about living in a house with a dirt floor and a grass roof and no access to running water, no access to proper sanitation. Quite often their kids cannot afford to go to even a public school because there are school fees and requirements to pay for textbooks, which they can't meet. And so what we're all about is trying to empower very poor families so that they can lift themselves up, so that they can get a proper foundation to their homes, so that they can get a tin roof in lieu of a roof that leaks continually because it's a grass roof, and allowing them to create income. So you'll find that these jobs are very just needed and the services they provide. So regardless of the global economic environment, there is some opportunity at the very base of the pyramid always for people to make scratch out some sort of living, and to do more than scratch out a living, is to fairly dramatically raise themselves to some sort of base, sustainable, healthy lifestyle.
Have you guys been able to measure your impact over the course of the last decade or so, or see how, have some benchmarks and be able to compare it through time and whatnot like that? But
sure. Well, I mean, one very broad benchmark is the United Nations has a list of what they call the least developed countries. So there are 50 least developed countries in the world. And in the last 10 years, that list has been 100% stagnant, except for the addition of East Timor to the list. So it went from 49 to 50. There is only one country in that list in the last 10 years that has been slated for removal from that list, and that is the country of Samoa. And if you talk to the Prime Minister of Samoa, or the Minister of Finance of Samoa, or the Ministry of Women's Affairs in Samoa, they would say that one of the reasons that Samoa is graduating from the least developed countries is because of the empowerment that has been provided to the most economically disadvantaged portion of that society, and that's been provided by SPBD. And so we make a big difference. And so we make a big difference in terms of giving real economic opportunity to thousands and thousands of families. We've worked with over 40% of the families in Samoa.
Wow.
We help them get small businesses going. We help them build savings accounts. We help them with life insurance accounts. We help them improve their housing, and we help ensure that their kids get a proper education. In addition, there's a lot of anecdotal stuff that you would see with regards to improving self-esteem amongst women. And so, yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of accolades and recognition with regards to the impact that we're making there.
That's fantastic. Let's flash back, let's say 10, 15 years ago, and you have someone in a similar executive role as what you were, or maybe a person in an executive role today who wants to make a difference but might not have the entrepreneurial spirit necessary to make the kind of big jump that you made. Any suggestions on how they could make a measured impact in their current role?
Well, I think that all business, can make a positive impact, and so you don't have to go and have some sort of life-changing switch that I made. And so, as I said, when I was with Ford, I mean, I thought I was very proud of the impacts that we made. And so, keep on a more global hat and consider the impact that you are making in the societies in which you work, and think of the economic impacts that you're making, think of the environmental impacts that you're making, and think of how do you invest your capital and your human resources so that you're, one, are not making detrimental impacts, and two, so that you're making a positive economic or environmental impact. So try to be a leadership, because if you're a leadership organization in empowering people or in making sure that there are positive environmental initiatives, then you will be able to also attract good, young, bright, vibrant talent into your organization. And one thing that separates a really great global organization from a fairly mediocre one is one that is able to attract good talent. And so if you're an organization that is really values or virtues based, that is doing really inspiring, motivational stuff, you'll have a pipeline to the best talent in the world. And so I think it's something to take into consideration, and that regardless if you're working for Coca-Cola or whoever, there are issues that you can address directly. In Coca-Cola, water is a big issue. They're a huge consumer of water. And figuring out, how do you use water in a sustainable manner? Just about every single large American corporation has got issues, and so I think looking at it in a sensible manner and looking at the impacts that you're making, and how to allocate your capital and your resources is important.
Well, your answer is a great lead into what's my final question, which is, we touched upon advice on maybe a person in a corporate executive role, but do you have any advice for, let's say, an MBA, a current MBA who's interested in entering the world of social enterprise?
Sure. Well, I think that one of the key success factors to anyone's life is to keep learning. So, life is, you don't stop learning once you finish your formal education. If you stop learning, then you're sort of dead. Okay, so you're gonna be like a shark. You got to just keep moving and keep learning and learning and learning, because the world is not going to stop. And so, regardless of where you end up, because sometimes getting into a social enterprise right out of business school may be difficult. But that shouldn't bother you. I didn't get into a social enterprise right out of business school, and today a lot of people think I'm some sort of leader in the field. What's important is to keep developing your skill set and to keep working hard and work in an environment that will really challenge you. If you go to work for an organization that has a nice lofty mission, but it is very bureaucratic and it's not really pushing the cutting edge, then you're sort of going to develop similar habits and similar mindsets, and you'll become lazy mentally as well, and you won't go where you need to go. And so whether there are financial skills you want to build, or whether there are organizational management skills that you want to build, if you're working for Starbucks, if you're working for Dunkin' Donuts, there are great human resource management skills that you can pick up there that are very relevant to social enterprises working in developing countries. One of the big challenges in the world of microfinance is how we're a very labor-intensive industry, and how do you manage large numbers of people, relatively lower-skilled people, in a manageable way. And so it doesn't matter who you're working for. You just make sure you're constantly challenging yourself, and you're learning reasonable sets of skills that can be applied perhaps somewhere else. And then, don't lose your dreams. So hold on to your dreams. Have an idea of what it is that you'd like to be doing 10 years down the road, and don't allow people to crush your dreams. Revisit your dreams every now and then, because people change over time. But, hold on to your dreams, know where they are, and have an idea as to where it is that you'd like to go in the medium to long term.
Great. Well, Greg, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey.
We really appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Thanks a whole lot for having me.
And we hope you really enjoy the rest of your time here in Bloomington as well.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you for tuning in, and I hope you learned something about the important international and social entrepreneurial work of the Kelley School of Business. If you have topics that you'd like to discuss in future cyber focuses, please contact the Center for International Business Education and Research here at the Kelley School. Thank you.